car driving, and you get the second call, and they tell you as you're driving that Trayvon is dead.
Yes.
What did you do?
I don't think it didn't sit in, because I was like doubtful that it was even him. I was like, are you sure? Do you know for sure if that's him? I didn't think it was him, because I thought that's impossible for him to, just be dead at 17. I just...
Be dead?
No, I couldn't believe it. And I drove maybe a couple of miles, and it started to sit in. And I pulled over on the side of the street. I was on I-95, and I pulled over just as if it's yesterday. I'm remembering this. And I pulled over on the side of the street, and I just cried. I just cried and cried and cried, and I screamed, and I just could not believe it. It took me about...
Did you think that there was some kind of a mistake? Did you think that they had the wrong person?
I thought that they had the wrong person, because surely I couldn't believe that my son was dead and gone. I couldn't believe that.
Because I know I'm projecting, but I remember when I finally realized Keith was dead, I was at our church, and I saw our preacher write, I was looking across the desk, I saw him write, Bernstein Funeral Home. And that's when it really hit me. And I still couldn't take, for weeks, I could hardly take it in. So you pull off the interstate and start crying.
Yes. I started crying, I started screaming, I started praying, I was just a mess. I was a mess. I was a mess.
What were you praying, that it wasn't Trayvon? Were you praying that it was somebody else and not him?
Well, I was praying that they didn't have the right person, and I knew that they didn't have the right person, because it could not have happened to him. I mean, nobody wants to send their kid with their dad, and then all of a sudden he's not there. So I couldn't believe it. I absolutely couldn't believe it. And then I started to think about what happened with him. Like, was he aching? Was he in pain? How much did he hurt? How long did it last? I started thinking as a mother about, what I could have done to help him, what I could have done to, save his life.
To this day, and I don't know if anybody's told you this or not, but it was back in 1979 when Keith was killed. To this day, I still think he took 5 gunshot wounds, 5 bullets. And I still, to this day, all this time later, wonder, how long was he alive? What did he feel? Did he just black out? Did he not feel it? I pray to God that he did.
Right.
Do you still think about that? I think about it all the time.
Of course, I think about it. I think about, how scared he was, that somebody was following him. Somebody was following him in their vehicle, and then he continued to follow him on foot. I just put myself in Trayvon's shoes and just imagine how afraid he was, because if he took off running, he was afraid. He was afraid. It was dark. It was late. It wasn't late at night, because this happened between 7 and 7:30. But he was afraid.
I'm just trying to imagine you in that car, pulled over, the car's flying by on the interstate, and you just heard your son is dead. Your teen, a high school junior. And I'm not talking about the case or the law or the jury or the verdict. I'm talking about a mother hearing her child is dead. I mean, the last you knew, everything was fine. And then suddenly he's dead? How did you get the strength to put your hands on that steering wheel and drive? How did you do that?
One of the things that I did is, I'm a God-fearing woman. And I knew absolutely positively, and that was during my darkest hour. I felt that nothing worse could happen to me in life. And I told God, just help me, just hold me, just strengthen me so that I can move on, because I have another son, Javaris. And I needed to make sure that I wasn't a broken mother for him, that I was still in one piece. I was hurting, but I was still in one piece. And I wanted to make sure that God was with me. So that's my prayer. I prayed for that. I asked God to strengthen me. I asked God to use me, and he did. once I got myself together.
When you put your hands back on that steering wheel to get back into traffic, did you know at that time, did you accept Trayvon was dead? Or in your mind, did you think that there has been some horrible mistake and maybe he's still alive?
I absolutely did not. I wasn't sure of it until I seen him myself. When I seen him myself, that's when I knew that it's really true. Leading up to that time, I think I just started really encouraging myself because no one was around me at that time. And I just felt weak. I felt helpless. I felt that I needed to build myself up. So I relied on God to fill that empty void because there was definitely a void. It felt like someone had just reached in my chest and just tore my heart right out. And I was living and I was breathing without my heart. And it was very difficult. The most difficult thing I've ever had to do
was get back on the road and drive. And when you started driving, I know you were still praying. I know you were crying and you were praying out loud. Where did you go?
I went home. I couldn't even see the street. That's how I knew God was with me from the time I left my job because I couldn't even see the road. I was driving home, but I was still crying and I was still praying. I couldn't see the road, but I made it there in one piece. And when I got there, my family was there. My mother was there. My sister was there. I was surrounded by my brother. And, my family was just there for me.
When you pulled into your driveway and you looked up at your house, what did you see?
Nothing. I didn't see anything. My family was there. They were outside. They were waiting on me. They may have been waiting for a while because it doesn't take that long for me to get, from my job to my house. But I had the little break in getting home. So they were there. They were there to support me. They were there to help me through this. And they're still with me today.
Miss Fulton, I was just thinking about what you said. And you had your other son and you felt you had to be strong. You had to get that car back on the road. You had to get to where you were going. I remember after Keith's death, I didn't care if I lived or died. Became a prosecutor and would do the most crazy and dangerous things because it did not matter to me. In fact, it would have been a relief for me to get to go and be with Keith. When you got out of that car, how did you even stand up? I would have just wanted to die right then and there and go be with him and go be with my son.
I have a strong faith in God, and I believe when the time comes that I will see Trayvon again in heaven. I truly believe that, and I truly believe that he's in heaven and he's looking down low and he's smiling at me, and he's the one of the persons that's helping me to go on.
We are live and taking your calls. With me now, Trayvon Martin's mother and father. To you, Miss Fulton, Sabrina Fulton, you described with us that drive down the interstate back to your home, and inside, knowing you had to be strong to find out the truth about what happened, to be a mother to your other child. When did you find out the facts surrounding Trayvon's death?
We found out some of the facts surrounding Trayvon's death shortly after, but we were still not able to explain to other people and to other family members what happened because we didn't have many facts. Some of the facts we found out during the actual trial. So it was some things we didn't actually find out till the trial actually happened.
Like what?
Maybe like I don't think we knew about all of the 911 calls. We hadn't heard about all of the different 911 calls. We hadn't heard about the different calls George Zimmerman made to the non-emergency police department in Sanford. We just didn't know the dynamics of the Sanford Police Department and what they had, the information that they had. We just felt that we were victims and we didn't have enough information about our minor son's death.
When you were sitting in that courtroom and you're hearing things for the first time and you heard the 911 calls, the other ones, well, the Zimmerman calls for the first time, what was going through your head? You'd never even heard them before. You didn't even know about them.
It was just something new. It was just something that we didn't know about. And it was very difficult the entire time there.
Trayvon Martin. Out to Tracy Martin. This is Trayvon's father. Mr. Martin, again, I can't tell you how many prayers have been lifted up. Regardless of the trial and the verdict and all of that, I can't even imagine losing my child. I mean, I've only had him 5.5 years, but with every year, you love him more. The night that Trayvon was shot, where were you?
We actually went to go get something to eat. We went out to dinner with a friend whose birthday was that night. And after dinner, we returned back to the residence. And
when did you first learn that something was wrong?
I didn't learn until the next morning that something was wrong. Trayvon was up there with my nephew, and both of them were responsible kids. And I knew that they wanted to go to the movies. I knew that they wanted to go and get something to eat. What
were they going to go see? What did they want to go see so badly?
I don't know what movie was out. If I'm not mistaken, it may have been. It was a movie. I don't know what movie was out. It was a kids movie, a comedy.
You want a closer look, but the naked eye can only see
mother. There was no doubt whatsoever that it was him screaming, correct?
Absolutely.
My world has just been turned upside down.
It was your son, in fact, screaming as you've testified. That would suggest that it was Mr. Zimmerman's fault that led to his death, correct?
Correct.
Welcome back. Live and taking your calls, Trayvon Martin's parents. Back to Trayvon's mother, Sabrina Fulton. Miss Fulton, once you got to your home, after you had learned, pulled over on the side of the road in the car, that Trayvon was dead, where did you go? What did you do? What could you do?
I didn't do anything. I just stayed home. And family came to pray with me. Family came to cry with me. I stayed home for a few days, to say the least, and I just had to get myself together. It took a while for me to really get it together. But I constantly kept Trayvon's picture up because I just didn't want to forget about what he looked like when he was alive, because death just makes you think of so many ugly things, and I just didn't want to equate his death with his life. So I made sure that I kept pictures up of him smiling, pictures up of him with the family, just to remind me of the happy times.
Miss Fulton, when you said it took you that long to get yourself together, I remember I didn't want to take a shower, I didn't want to eat, I didn't want to put my hair back, I didn't want to, we couldn't even stand to have the clocks tick. My mother had to cut the clocks off in the house. I couldn't hear